think we'll be fine. The rats, they just keep on coming out of that place. So this is, of course, the fish market area where I was saying before, looking for Chris. Spent a reasonable amount of time doing that.
Need something sharp.
Did we talk to this blacksmith before, though? I don't think so. We've been here before, obviously. But I think this guy is new to us. I mean, we presumably would have played him at Gwent. Let's see what you have.
What do you have on offer?
So you are a weapons person, it would seem. That is not as good of a pair of saddlebags as we currently have, but we could sell our old one. Do you have any interesting gear for us to get? That is, well, it's probably a little bit too low a level for us to make use of that right now. Rune stones, lesser rune stones, other rune stones, other rune stones, all of the rune stones in case you didn't have enough rune stones. You can have some more rune stones, but is there perhaps anything other than a rune stone? Of course there isn't. You have some other interesting stuff, though. I mean, again, we've seen a few vendors who are selling meteorite and silver, and at times I've thought it's tempting, especially if we find that we have a fair amount of gold, as we currently do. Could make a point of purchasing this stuff here, because it is kind of expensive, yes, but you guys have said it's pretty important, so is it enough? Ooh, that's interesting too. I don't think we've ever seen this before. But is it important enough / necessary enough for us to buy all the meteorite that we find and or silver that we find? Or as long as we save things up and don't sell those things that we pick up, are we in the clear? Now, granted, I'm pretty sure that's like borderline spoiler territory, so maybe don't answer that. But we do theoretically have the opportunity to sell at least some of our lower tier weapons to this guy here. I don't really expect those to be upgrades for us. They're worth a little bit, not a ton. This actually could be an upgrade once we gain 1 level, which we're getting closer to doing. It's actually worth a fair bit, despite it being a pretty weak sword. That's sort of surprising. We do have some old ones like this. This seems like we've pretty clearly outgrown if it's 26 damage below our current sword. Obviously, anything with 3 sockets for rune stones, there's the chance we could improve it, more so than, or make it better than the numbers we see here. But at the same time, 26 is a lot, so we'd probably be better off just getting a weapon that is roughly the same strength as what we have currently and make sure that it has rune stones. We might even have rune stones on our current sword, I don't remember. But I think that does mean that we have several things here that are pretty safe sells. I think this and this, these ones that are, this is actually slightly better damage. Even though it has 0 durability remaining. Okay, we might need to look at that a little more closely. Likewise with this one, might be that our current sword is totally broken down. This one's a little worse. This one is actually much better. Whoa. Okay. Looks like we maybe could use a fair bit of sword swap in here. And you theoretically are not the right person to be selling armor to. So I think we probably hold off on that. It doesn't matter who we sell our saddlebags to, so we could do that here. That's the old one. And then, other than that, you're not going to take any of our crafting items, so I think that's probably enough here. You are a journeyman. I believe that's the 2nd tier. That is not the weakest of craftspeople, and therefore it is possible that you could be able to make some decent stuff for us. Let's take a quick look here. These are all crafting materials. I'm most interested in things like weapons. Probably should have just turned off this filter here. Crossbows and crossbow bolts, not terribly interested in that stuff. Junk, not terribly interested in that either. As for silver weapons, again, we might find that some of the stuff is way better than what we currently have. That's certainly the case here, but that's because this is a level 26 weapon. But the problem is, what with us just seeing that we could swap over to a different weapon and perhaps gain some damage from that, even though this looks like a small upgrade, I think if we were to update our weapon to our best one, that might no longer be the case. So probably doesn't make a lot of sense to invest in a level 12 weapon here, but something like a level 18 that we're fairly close to being able to use. Might not be a bad idea. Is there anything that Griffin Silver Sword? Can we? Yes, we can enhance that. Although we do have components missing. That's because we don't have the base sword. That is kind of tempting, though. What is the deal with the Silver Sword here, or with the Griffin School stuff specifically? Sign intensity, bonus experience for monsters. That's good. Other than that, not much else. If we were to upgrade it, additional sign intensity, additional bonus experience. I mean, it's helpful. Seems like experience is the primary special thing there. We've seen it a little bit on some items, but not 20%. That is a lot. You don't get a ton of experience from fighting monsters, to be honest, though. Most of it is coming from specifically completing the quests. So I think that might be partially because when we do fight random monsters along in the wilderness and the bandits and back alleys and whatnot, they're pretty low level. So we're getting like 1 to 2 experience per bandit, so 20% of that probably is rounding down to nothing. So although that does look like a big difference maker, I think there are only certain circumstances under which that will actually help us out. So it's a little bit misleading. This is actually the best fit in terms of level for us right now. So if we were going for the very short term, this would probably be the answer. But like I said, I'm hesitant to do that right now because I do feel like we probably should make a point of seeing what our current swords look like when we actually swap over to the best stuff we have available to us. But we are now at a point where it seems like we either have several options that are pretty good level for us or options that are very close to being usable. Again, this is one of those ones where we get the base one and then we'll be able to upgrade it. Like, what's the deal with Oh, again, this is Griffin. So seems like Griffin is, yeah, just mostly experience. So like sign intensity and then bonus experience. This one's from humans rather than monsters because this is a steel sword rather than a silver sword. So that makes sense. Any other game changers here? The Witch Slayer looks really strong, but of course that's a long ways away from us being able to make that. We did just see the Elven Whetstone as an item that this guy was selling us, so we could make this if we were to buy it from him. What does that allow us to make? An amateur's weapon repair kit? Really worth doing? Not sure. We have to see what the value of the amateur's weapon repair kit is relative to the value of the Elven Whetstone. Do we on net gain value from crafting this, or is it better for us to just buy repair kits directly? Don't know. So yeah, I think this is probably not the right time for doing that stuff. Let's make a point of switching around some things first. But breaking some stuff down into components could be a reasonable idea here. Like breaking down a silver mug into some silver. Let's do that. What else? Gold ring into gold. I'm pretty sure we're going to want to do that. Pretty sure. Don't think... Yeah, the gold ring itself is considered junk, so I think we just do this. Similar story with the gold sapphire ring. Can be sold for a significant sum or dismantled into crafting components. We could theoretically sell it and make a pretty good amount if we were to do that. But I'm thinking we probably want the gold nugget and sapphire instead. Which will, of course, cost us money in that case instead. But I think we can live with that. Candelabrum does give us some iron, so that's not bad. Thread and string is maybe not quite as valuable to us. Dye is, I think, actually a little bit hard to get, so let's break that down. Perfume gives us oil and files. It's not super meaningful. Like I was saying before, we're typically selling our hides, and so for that reason, it's we haven't gotten much in the way of leather. Maybe worth doing a little bit more of that, but it's largely because they do sell for a bit. So that's why I'm a little bit reluctant to go that route. And yes, this was the rusty hammerhead, which does in fact turn into more steel. So that's also pretty useful. The timber stuff, I mean, I think we have a lot of that right now, so we could do it. I think it's pretty cheap. So sure. Hardened timber is probably a little bit better. So yeah, I think this is probably pretty good where it stands right now. All this other stuff is higher level materials that we'd just be breaking down into worse subcomponents. Sure, we'll break this down too. And I guess this as well, even if it's not super good, it just Gets rid of some of the junk in our inventory, turns it into components, which does save us a little bit of weight as well, theoretically. Of course, we did just upgrade our saddlebag, so it's not terribly concerning at the moment where things currently stand there. I think most of this stuff that's weighing us down, and we're not really weighted down at the moment, but selling some of this armor, like some of the many boots that we just picked up, just sold a fair amount of swords. We probably don't want to break down into components, although that's an interesting option, actually. And they're valuable to sell. Like 500 coins is a lot. But to get some silver ingots back, some sapphire dust, emerald dust, that's difficult stuff to get, so there's something to be said for that. As for old armors, maybe some armors that aren't worth very much, that actually gives meteorite. Wow. That's interesting. Costs 65 to break it down versus 293 to sell it. I feel like if we were to sell it, we could probably buy meteorite ore and still make a profit there. I think that is actually a little bit more efficient. So let's maybe go back to the shop real quick and just verify. We were looking at these guys. How much are these worth? Oh, it's actually 113. Okay, and then how much does meteorite cost? Do some quick mental math. Costs 70 a piece. So on net, we are making, what, like 43 coins? Whereas if we do the breaking down into components, that would mean this. We are getting something worth 113 coins for 65, which is slightly better than that. So yeah, it is slightly better to break down into components, and we also get other things out of it too. Okay, so let's do that then. Seems like that'll help. So that's another way of getting some meteorite ore. Any of these bad boots actually help us out? Some dye, like we were saying, that might be kind of difficult to get. I don't think it's necessarily all that valuable. It's just that if it's tough to get, and it's useful for creating some armors, which I think is the case, then it could be something that's worth doing every now and again. This might be an armor upgrade for us, so we should... Oh, but it is heavy. That's probably why. Yeah, let's break this down. And this other stuff, I think, yeah, sure, the dark iron ore is nice. It's not worth as much as the chest plates were, so sure. I mean, it would be nice to be able to sell more stuff to this guy, because now we are making him kind of rich. So it would be convenient to be able to take advantage of that and make some coins. But I think we've still done some good stuff there. So, now that we've done that, let's... Okay, and we looked at crafting stuff with him. Let's play some quits.
Wouldn't mind a few rounds of cards.
Oh yeah, I suppose so. Okay, and no, not monsters. Still Northern Realms. It's been working so far. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so, since we were now able to talk to some people who we were not able to talk to previously, that does make me wonder if... That's a lot of Commander's Horns. That does make me wonder if, say, Triss's home might now be accessible to us. So yeah, this is a pretty terrible hand, largely because we have 3 Commander's Horns, which, yes, in small quantities can be helpful. However, remember that our leader ability is, in effect, a Commander's Horn specifically for the Siege row, which means we either use a Commander's Horn in multiple rounds, which is not often that we do that, or one of these is just completely useless to us, so I think we probably want to get rid of at least one of them here. Also, the Siege Experts are useful when you have a lot of Siege units. We do have some, but not a ton. Problem is, right now, typically what we tend to do is load up on Siege, play them all in one round, and with that, that means we have a reasonably strong Siege round, yes, but then our remaining round, all we have is Vesemir and Zoltan. We could double them, of course, with a Commander's Horn, but that's still not a ton. So, Torrential Rain, nerfing the Siege row. If we were to play that in the round when we're playing Zoltan and Vesemir, we might be able to put some use to that. I think for the most part, we probably want to switch another Commander's Horn here. And we got a spy out of it, and I think that is helpful. Our opponent is playing as monsters, but we do go first here. So I'm thinking what we do is we play Stennis. Draw, what did we get? A few range cards? Okay. So I'm thinking we deliberately lose this round. And hope that our opponent goes crazy, does a bunch of things that they don't really need to do. And, well, the thing is, though, like, where do we take it from here? We have card advantage, yes. Our opponent now only has 7 cards. It does seem like. We were asking that question earlier as to whether or not these cards here that have muster will also play cards from their hand all in one turn. Because, I mean, they start with 10 cards. They played 1 card, and now they're all the way down to 7. So I'm pretty sure, even though it only says find any cards with the same name in your deck and play them instantly, I think that does still include their hand as well. Which does mean that they functionally played multiple cards here, relative to our just 1 card, so we're suddenly 4 cards ahead of them. So, what is the best way to move on from here is either, I think, to play 1 card and hope that they further overinvest, or just call it quits on this round here, take the loss and say, alright, we'll ride it out with our 4-card advantage. Remember, as monsters, they will have the ability to keep 1 card on the playing field. So even though we do have a 4-card advantage here, in reality, it's going to feel like more of a 3-card advantage. And they can double the close combat row as their leader ability. We don't have the ability to nerf the melee row this time around. That was a savior, game changer for us last time. So, that would be helpful. I mean, if we were to find a way to steal a spy on their part with our decoy, then maybe we might be able to make that happen. But, I think for now, we just pass. Does, of course, mean... I mean, they're going to pass right now, aren't they? Unless they were to play a spy and draw more cards. They don't, so that's good. They keep their spy, as we expected them to do. So now, that does mean, of course, with us having lost... Oh, our opponent immediately passes. They did that last time we played a monster enemy. When we played a spy. Actually, I think they passed as soon as we played it on their side. And then they played through the round 2. But very similar that they have a round in which they only have 1 spy. So I think... what we did before probably works this time as well. I think that time we played a 6 strength card to take the lead in 1 turn. And that will be enough here. That way we don't have to invest more cards than we need to. And the question then would be, well, which 6 strength card do we play? And I think the answer is either Vesemir... well, yeah, it could either be Vesemir or Death Mold, because in either case we have 11 strength in total on the close combat and on the range row. And bearing in mind that we're likely to double that in the next round, we'd like to be all in on one of those rows, or, maximize the amount of strength we have in that row. So take your pick as to whether you think we'll end up drawing a close combat or a range card when we win this round. I think we have more close combat cards than we do range cards, but saying that... oh, don't play this card. That's the wrong one. Play this one. Saying that probably means that we will end up drawing into a range card. So they will still keep Stennis on the board. And we did draw a range card. So, unfortunately, guessed wrong there, but what can you do, right? Could theoretically have tried to count our cards in our deck. Can we even look at the cards remaining in our deck? I'm not sure we can. But, okay. So now, we're of course going all in here. And we do still have a 4-card advantage. So that is the big thing that we were trying to do, was prepare ourselves for that. So, the thing is, the siege nerf, we were thinking we would probably use that in a round in which we were not going to play all of our siege cards, and we are definitely going to be playing and doubling our siege cards this round, so this is basically useless to us right now. So, in reality, it's more like we have 10 cards, which is functionally 3-card advantage, except you already have a spy out on the field for 5 strength on your side, so in reality, it's more like a 2-card advantage. That's still something. So, what do we start with here? I think we start with 5 strength units, like we were talking about in a recent go-round. If our opponent has a Scorch, then we want to make it so that they're not exclusively taking out our cards. If anything, they're at least taking out both their card and our card in the process. So let's continue with the same thought process here. Of course, with multiple units tied with 5 strength, it would remove Stennis, Zoltan, and this guy here. Okay, so that's a range nerf. We do, of course, still have 1 more card to play in the range row. I think we do that now, then. Again, deliberately trying to play our weakest cards first, in case our opponent has anything special they want to do, like a Scorch, to remove the strongest cards out there. And they do double the melee row. I mean, they were going to do that at some point, right? But I think we play the Siege Experts next for that reason. And we'll definitely be doubling our melee rather than our range row, given how range got nerfed. Okay, Werewolf is just 5 strength, but it is also melee row. So that's, again, a little concerning here. We will, of course, end up doubling our Siege row eventually and our own post-combat row. Oh, that hurts a lot, though. That hurts a lot. We do not have a way to get rid of the nerf on the Siege row. So that's going to be pretty catastrophic and might single-handedly mean that we've lost this one. So, we can play our Siege cards now, but it's not going to be nearly as effective as it was going to be before. We also really hope that our opponent has a spy that we could, say, use our decoy on, because at the moment, decoy is not doing much of anything for us. That's another thing that we would have hoped to have had the ability to use under slightly different circumstances. Yeah, this is not looking good right now. You are totally loading up on the melee row, very similar to the previous monster's enemy that we faced, and that time round, like I said, we had a melee nerf. This time we do not. We will double our melee row, yes, but their melee row has a lot more in it than ours does right now. Those leaders, of course, will not get doubled because they're leaders and don't get affected by the special cards, but they're sitting on 76. When we double this, we're going to be, well, 34, and then we can use our leader ability to double the siege row, but that's still not going to be enough. 44, we could decoy to get rid of a card, and then proceed to replay it, which will do precisely nothing for us right now. Likewise, with the siege nerf, when there's already a siege nerf in place. So nothing that we do here makes any difference. Unfortunately, we have definitely lost this one. The big thing was our opponent had a siege nerf. We didn't have a way to get rid of it. We would have loved to have had a melee nerf to counter that in a way, except didn't have one this time around, so we lost this one. We will, of course, replay this guy, because that simply will not do. Get back here.
Need something sharpened, reforged.
How about my Gwent deck?
Wouldn't mind a few rounds of cards.
Alright, let's take this guy out. Ooh, special card limit reached. Oh, I was trying to add a decoy to the deck without realizing it. No, let's just go straight into the match. We go first this time. The most important thing, though, is what cards do we get? Because we had a bit of a difficult starting hand last time. Okay, this looks at least a little bit better to start off with. We have... Well, I thought we had a decoy for a second. However, we do not. Decoy plus medic is, of course, really strong, as well as decoy plus spy, but no decoy to speak of. We do have clear weather, which means we could remove those weather effects, which would be helpful, because that's what we would have really wanted to have last time around. Roach is immune to those weather effects, so that's helpful too, but I think having this range nerf is probably not terribly useful to us, because we saw that this guy is going to load up on melee. Now, of course, there's the chance that he just so happened to have all of his melee cards in his hand, or drew all of them last go round, but I think that is a pretty clear sign that the vast majority, if not just about all cards that he plays, are going to be melee, so this is functionally a useless card for us in that case. Catapult is not bad. In fact, that is one of our strongest cards. It does have Tight Bond and 8 strength. Do we have another one? We do. Okay, so that means these guys will get doubled in the siege row when we play them both together, which brings them up to 16. Our leader ability, apiece, 16 apiece, so 32 collectively. Then we use our leader ability to double them again. Then they will be 64 collectively. So that means that, I mean, add in Siege Expert to boost them a little bit further, add in Dun Banner Medic. That is pretty close to a guaranteed win, unless, of course, our opponent has the Siege nerf, in which case we use Clear Weather to get rid of it. So I like our Siege row a lot. The question is, what else do we have going for us above and beyond just that? We have Roach. He's strong in the melee row. We have Blue Stripes Commando, who is our weakest unit unless we get another Blue Stripes Commando to use that Tight Bond ability with. So, I'm thinking, if we're feeling lucky, we try getting another one of these guys by getting rid of someone like Sheila. If we aren't feeling so lucky, then we get rid of this guy and hope we just get a higher base strength unit. I'm kind of feeling that. And we got a Commander's Horn out of it, which at the moment doesn't do anything for us because we have our leader ability, which will use a Commander's Horn on the Siege Row. So that's covered. We have another Commander's Horn that we can use on the Range Row for Sheila and this guy here. However, our only melee row unit right now is Roach, and he's a hero, therefore doesn't get affected by that. So, functionally, one of these guys is useless. So that is unfortunate. And now the question becomes, do we go... What do we go with this time around? Do we try to win this round and go for the combination of Roach, Dragon Hunter, and Sheila and double the range row? Thinking that's probably what we go for. And then that leaves us with still Siege to win either round 2 or round 3 whenever we feel like it. Does mean, however, that we are somewhat limited in our firepower this time round. So if our opponent can outplay us in round 1, we are in a bit of trouble, because then we won't have much remaining rounds 2 and 3. That is a very strong card that they have that allows them to play all those cards from their deck. We saw them do that last time. Then, next for us comes the range row. Blue S, also same ability. Again, they are loading up on melee, and this is kind of what I was referring to. So let's just do some quick math here. Roach will remain 10. Sheila is a 5, and then if we play the Dragon Hunter, he will be a 5 in here. Also in the range row, that brings us to 10 total in the range row. We can double the range row using our Commander's Horn, bringing it up to 30 total between these two rows, which means that, assuming our opponent continues to play cards, they will still have the lead. So, I don't really want to have to play any of our siege units this round. Basically, what I mean to suggest is we've already lost this round. So, I think we pass here. Our opponent obviously isn't going to play more cards after they've already won this, unless they happen to have a spy. We don't have a way to steal said spy, but I think that if we play more cards here, we are only digging ourselves further into a hole. So I think we don't really have much option other than to pass here. And concerning for rounds 2 and 3, because we do still have a lot of firepower in the Siege Row EX, but assuming that we are not... Ooh, and they're decoying to bring someone back, that's also not a good sign. So they're saving some stuff for the next round. But yeah, the thing is, assuming that we don't want to split up our Siege Row all that much, and they did pass immediately, then that does mean that it was going to be difficult for us to win 2 rounds. We had enough firepower perhaps to win a round, but now our opponent is basically handing us this one here, so I think we do this. And, well, it does mean that we have a couple of Commander's Horns now that are going to be pretty darn useless for us, so we'll pass here. In this way, we're at least winning a round without having to invest more than just, well, with only having to invest 1 card. So after we do this, we will draw a card because we're Northern Realm, so we draw a card whenever we win a round. They will also keep a card on the playing field because they're monsters, that's their thing. So in essence, we are still tied here. Okay, and at least we can use one of our Commander's Horns to double Death Mold. It's not going to be a super powerful Commander's Horn, but it's at least giving this card some value. Second one is useless. And this time, the difference maker, I'm hoping, will be that we do have a clear weather, so that if our opponent does use a nerf on the Siege Row, we can get rid of it. Oh, and we do also have the medic. So that does mean that we could bring back someone like, say, Sheila or the Dragon Hunter. That way we have more cards to double in the range row. Okay, so the range row with the Commander's Horn in that case won't be too bad. Let's start off with our weakest units, though. Like I was saying before, if our opponent has a Scorch, we want to play the weak ones first. That way they're scorching themselves, not us. That's more muster, and we saw they had a lot of vampires last time. Yeah, that's still concerning. Problem is, it's so easy for them to get this combo going. You know, it allows them to play every vampire from their deck, yes, but they only need one of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards in their hand at any given point in time to trigger that. And chances are pretty good you're going to get one of those, right? So I think what we do here is, well, we don't really have much option to remain with the weakest unit out here unless we use our leader ability right now. We could do that. I'm a little concerned about that means that next turn that might mean we're using the medic, and then they could perhaps delete the medic, which I'd rather not have happen. But I'm trying to make it such that if our opponent has a Scorch, it's not going to work. And either they'll just pass without having played it, or in doing so, they'll take out one of their own cards as well as ours. What I don't want to have happen is for us to say, have a couple of catapults in play, have those catapults doubled, and they're like 32 strength apiece. Our opponent uses a Scorch and they remove 32 strength in one fell swoop. That would be a big loss. So I think that is probably the biggest mistake we can make here, and therefore I want to be very careful with what we do. I think, though, probably do use... Let's use our leader ability, then we'll use Death Mold next turn. So at worst, we're going to lose a 6 strength unit. They're using their leader ability, which doubles melee row. That's the other thing. They have a guaranteed way to double the melee row. But it also means they spend another turn without using any theoretical Scorches that they may or may not have. Okay, so we could use our Clear Weather here to remove the range nerf. We will want to do that at some point. However, do we want to do it right now? It's risky. On one hand, if we play it now, that means we will sort of bide our time for one more turn, not play any more strong cards, and therefore, if our opponent does have a Scorch, they're not going to want to use it. They would be removing their own card here, the Vampire Catachan. So it is safe in that regard. However, the way in which it is not safe is that if, say, they also have a Siege nerf buried somewhere in their deck, then that means that they'd be able to play that Siege nerf and we'd no longer have our card that allows us to remove it. So I think what we do here is we play the range Commander's Horn this turn. Death Mold, 2 strength, not a concern there. What do? You play Fiend to have more cards in the melee row, which is not a great sight. I really want you to play whatever weather effects you have right now, or your Scorch right now, because at the moment, we have a way to get rid of the weather effects, and we have, well, yourself getting destroyed from the Scorch. We can play our throwaway Commander's Horn. That is a way to quite literally just throw away a turn, because it does nothing for us and will do nothing for us. So let's see. If they pass early, then we know that they likely have a card that they don't really want to play for that last card there. That is a strong card they just played. It is another muster one, but apparently they didn't have any other Crones to summon, because we didn't see any others show up. So they have one more card to play. Chances of that card being a Siege nerf are non-zero, so I would still like to hold off on this. I think does mean we play the medic, which means, oh, she still would not get destroyed from a Scorch, because in this case, she would get doubled, so she'd go from 5 to 10. However, if our opponent's last card is Scorch, they would still be removing the Fiend and the Brewess. So I think, yes, that is definitely the right answer here. Play you. We can bring someone back. Doesn't matter. Either one will be a 5-strength unit in the range row. Will, at least for the moment, be nerfed. This last card is what? It's Leshen. Okay, so no weather effects. So you're at 84. You are out of cards. So now we can remove this weather effect here. That will improve our range row. And these are our big guns that we were deliberately holding off on. I think they're going to be enough in and of themselves because they're getting doubled from the Commander's Horn, and then they will double themselves when we play 2 of them in the same row. So this should be a pretty huge number increase we see here. Yes. Had me nervous for a second there when it didn't update at first. We were in the 60s, but there you have it. It was enough. That guy was pretty good, and again, punches us.
Back there at Loch Marine.
We got Philippa is our card. Let's check that out. That could be a good one. Did look like it was blue, so likely Northern Realms. It is a hero as well. Yeah. 10 strength. I was going to say she was pretty darn significant in The Witcher 2. So wouldn't be surprised if she was a hero, so that is a huge pickup. Make no mistake. So for that reason, can we just add her without removing anything? We could. However, it is also an opportunity for us to, say, get rid of one of our weaker cards. In which case, what would we like that to be? Actually, which row is she? I mean, she's a hero, so she's not going to be affected by weather effects, so for Commander's Horn, so it's not as relevant as to which row she's in, but still, range. I suppose that's somewhat useful to know. We have 3 Blue Stripes Commandos, so in theory, if we were to actually get them to show up, that would be helpful. The Dragon Hunters do have slightly higher base damage, so if we don't have them showing up in pairs, then they are at least roughly equivalent to our average units, the 5 strength units. But if there's only, well, I feel like we'd probably get rid of one of our plain and simple 5 strength units, and tell you what, I feel like the only one that fits that category now, I think she might be. So these guys, yes, are weaker if we don't get the multiple of them to show up in one round, which is a little bit of a risk. But I think for the most part, we found that that's not a huge deal, because if they do show up and there's only one of them, then we just get rid of them and switch into something else. Most of the time, that's not a huge issue, but of course, if we find that we also have, like, 3 Commander's Horns and 2 decoys and not a lot of units, then maybe that becomes a problem, but I think we'd probably get rid of Sheila. We could potentially keep her in because we can throw another unit in our deck, and we're allowed to do that, but let's try this with just a higher concentration of higher power cards, because I think that throwing in Philippa will hopefully be a pretty big difference maker for us. Nice. Okay, so, like I was saying before, Chris, theoretically, is somewhere in this area.
Witcher, it even.
I was gonna say, for a second I thought that was lootable, but we definitely went here before. Now that we can speak to more people in this area, does that mean that we can also go into more of the buildings, perhaps? Who's the actual merchant here? Is it you?
Welcome, welcome.
Or was it just that it was not previously daytime here? We were going here at night, and for that reason, people weren't around? I don't know. We've definitely been here several times before, though, so I find that somewhat unlikely that we've just never been here in the day. Let's check this out. It does look like we can also play you at Gwent. You look like a Gwent aficionado.
What have you got?
Maybe. Let's not jump to conclusions just yet on that stuff. You are just a normal trader. Actually, technically an herbalist, it would seem. So, does that affect what we want to get from you? Bison grass is kind of hard to pick up. I feel like we should probably take some of that. And mistletoe, I think, has been something that we've been somewhat short on at times. Other than that, verbena? I don't remember how much of this we have. How expensive is it? It's on the expensive side. Yeah, it's actually pretty darn expensive at that. Let's take a couple, just in case we do need it. Other than that, anything else that we're short on? Long Groob, I get the mushrooms mixed up. The suet mushrooms we have a ton of, but I thought at one point we did need some of this. It is also a little bit expensive. I'm thinking we're probably going to sell some of our junk to this guy, so we'll make up for some of the coins we're spending right now, but probably not all. We have been doing a bit of junk selling as of late, so we might not have a ton remaining. Ergot seeds we've also not seen much of. Let's get some of those. What is this? Pop umbels? Very occasionally, I think we've seen that, and these are the suet mushrooms. I know we have a bunch of these. Let's take that. And then let's see what we can dump on you. Maybe even... we do have some fiend dung remaining still. Necrophage hide is extremely valuable. Wow. I did not realize that. So do we need this much of it? I mean, necrophages are, in theory, not that hard to get. I mean, can we get necrophage hide to drop from drowners? In which case, drowners basically grow on trees. The actual, like, rot fiends, I think those guys definitely drop it. Not sure about the drowners. Rot fiends are still fairly common. I'm thinking of, like, the byways tends to have those, and I think a slightly more powerful version of them. But, that's pretty convincing. We at least sell a little bit of that. Rot fiend blood is also somewhat valuable. Also, don't know to what extent we might want to have this in the future, so let's not sell all of it, but we'll sell a little bit. And then some other stuff like things from wyverns and other dragons that are much rarer. I think we definitely want to hold on to that. Don't dump any of it. Mostly just looking at stuff like things from neckers, Those are so common as well. Not super concerned about running out of that stuff. Drowner brains, same thing. Like some of them also, they do drop from some of these common enemies, but they might be slightly less common. Like the Drowner brain seems to drop with almost every Drowner that we fight. So I'm kind of just gonna trim the top off of some of our stacks here. Get rid of a little bit of some of these things. We do have a ton of Alchemist Powder still. This, of course, being one of the most common items for us to loot from crates. And do we have another stack of that? That is a full stack of 100. It is so common, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, if we did. Let's maybe sell that one. That puts you at 97. We just sell our empty bottles, because we probably don't need those. Sure. And then from there, we just sell a little bit more, and we can actually walk away with a profit. I think we already have, in fact. We'll get rid of a few more of these. Yeah, in fact, just a few. Just 6, so yeah. Not bad. Alright, I think that works out pretty well for us in that case.